Welcome to Life in Calgary, Alberta. I'm your host, Patrick Murray, and today we're talking about tariffs and the Calgary real estate market. But before we do that, if this is your first time to this channel and you want to know everything there is about what it's like to eat, sleep, breathe, live, and play in Calgary, Alberta, then please just hit that subscribe button and click that bell so you get notified every single time I release a new video. Now, I have to tell you, I've lived in several major centers in my adult life, but I settled in Calgary way back in 2001. And not only that, I've been a real estate professional here since 2010. And all of this means I have some very specialized knowledge about the city of Calgary and the surrounding bedroom communities. So if you are considering a move to the city of Calgary or one of the bedroom communities, or you're considering selling your home, please feel free to reach out to me, send me a text, email, or a phone call. I will absolutely get back to you. All right, guys, let's do this. Let's talk about tariffs in the Calgary real estate market right after this.
So without further ado, let's jump in here and we'll take a look at the City of Calgary market stats as of the end of February 2025. And as I always say at the beginning of each of these videos, we're talking about benchmark pricing because it's a far more stable way of talking about pricing as opposed to looking at average pricing or median pricing where the data can be skewed by, say, an unusual amount of lower price sales or an unusual amount of higher price sales in any 1 month. Benchmark pricing looks at what the average home would sell for in any particular neighborhood and puts it all together for these statistics here. And we're going to be looking at detached homes, semi-detached homes, townhomes, and condominium apartments. Now, first off, I'm going to say to you, of course, the elephant in the room is the tariffs. We're all worried about the tariffs. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with the real estate market with the tariffs? And even though there's been this dialogue going on for a few months now about the tariffs, the sentiment has been that the market in Calgary is still going to do fairly well given the tariffs, just because we still have an undersupply of housing in this city. Now, there are some indicators that, besides some seasonal softening that, and I can point these out as we go along, that there are other signs that, the thought process and the concern about the tariffs is having an effect. But I also think you're going to be a little bit surprised by some other data here that I'm going to show you in light of the tariffs. And of course, I think that the following month is going to be the real telltale, the data from the end of March. So this is the latest and greatest. We're into the month of March now. The data we have now is as of the end of February. We don't have the end of March data, of course, because we're not through the end of March. So let's jump in, guys, and take a look at things right now. So this is detached housing in the city of Calgary. We're going to look at this listing absorption rate of 45.05%. And you can see this dial is pointed in a balanced territory. So anything over and above 50% is a seller's market. Anything below 50% is balanced territory. And anything below 30% is considered a buyer's market. So you can see that we're sitting at this 45.05%. So we're on the upper end of a balanced market. And of course, this will fluctuate from neighborhood to neighborhood, as to how balanced it is. And in some instances, might even be a seller's market and might even depend on the price point of those homes. So, but overall, it's a balanced market because as of February, we had 1,698 listings for sale with 765 of those, or 45.05% of those selling. So whether you're a buyer or a seller, this is important data to be aware of because it does let you know a little bit about what your negotiating power might look like in the current marketplace. So now let's look at the benchmark pricing. We're sitting at $760,500 as of the end of February. Now, this is up 1.29% from last month. And year over year, we're up 5.08%, from February of last year. You can see February of last year was 723,700. This year, we're sitting at the 760,500. And I just wanted to take a look here. I was preaching about the seasonal softening we were seeing where prices were trending down. Anything in blue here is prices trending down. And then we started to creep back up here in January with this black. So showing prices increased a little bit from December to January and increased much more from January to February roughly by $10,000. So you can see that, we're increasing again, and that's a good sign for our market. That means that our market is quite healthy. And we'll scroll down here. This is the 10-year benchmark price trend. So from 2016 all the way through to where we are right now. Now, 2025 is not finished. This is averaging January and February pricing here, but we have all of 2024 here and so on and so forth. So you can kind of see that, if you had purchased in 2016, you would have made roughly 50.46% on your investment over 10 years. And now we'll come down to the actives and solds, and this further demonstrates that listing absorption rates. We had 1,698 actives of this product type in the market. That's up month to month by 17.27% from this past month. And year over year, though, it's up 61.25% from a year ago, February 2024. And that's because market conditions were very, very tight last year in comparison to this year. So it's not unusual to see that this is a much higher figure. Now, if we look at the sold data, month to month, we're up 13.5% from last month. So again, great news. We're seeing that the market is starting to pick up a bit. There's an uptick. Year to year, this sale price is down 19.81% from February last year. And again, this isn't a surprising figure because the market was very different conditions last year. It was very hot. So that's not unusual to see. We have a lot more inventory, so we see that there's a little more selection and people aren't as panicked to buy. So that's what we're seeing here. If we look at average days on market, we'll see we're sitting at 28 days right now. Last year, we were sitting at 25. Last month, we were sitting at 37. So you can see there's a huge uptick from last month to this month, and we're quite comparable to where it was last year. And then we can look at where the majority of sales are taking place. The majority of them, roughly 27.59% of them taking place in that $600,000 to $700,000 range, followed by the $700,000 to $800,000 range, followed by the $500,000 to $600,000 range, and then at $800,000 to $900,000 range, then the $1 million to $1.5 million range, followed by that $900,000 to $1 million range, and so on and so forth. So now we're going to take a look at the semi-detached sector of the market. And again, we're going to, those of you that don't know what semi-detached is, kind of like a duplex, if you will. Calgary has some very nice duplexes, if you will. So let's look at this listing absorption rate, sitting at 50.61%. So this is right on that ridge, where we're between that precipice between balanced and a seller's market, just barely into seller's market territory here. So as of February 2025, we had 326 listings, then 165 of them, or 50.61% of those listings sold. Now, if we look at the benchmark price trend chart, you can see we're sitting at $683,500 this month, and that's up 1.47% from last month. Year over year, though, we're up nearly 7%, up 6.9%, pardon me, from February of 2024. And you can see the prices last year was sitting at 639,400. Here we are at 683,500, and again we're up roughly $10,000 from last month. So again, the blue is the market decreasing in price, and of course we had some seasonal softening happening as we got into the fall and into the winter months, but here we are picking up. So again, a good sign for our Calgary market, even in the wake of the looming tariffs, right? Let's look at the benchmark price trend chart. 2016 prices were $402,000 roughly in this for the benchmark price in this product type, and here we are at $678,550 10 years later. That's a gain of 68.73%, ladies and gentlemen. So if you bought in 2016 and you're selling now, that's a fair chunk of change. Now we'll look at the and sold listings, further demonstrating that listing absorption rate. So 326 actives month over month. That's up 6.19% from January. So seeing a little more product hitting the market, and I certainly see it when I'm driving around. All product types we're seeing an increase year over year. That's up 46.85% from February 2024. Again, that is because we've had, it was a very different market last year to this year. So conditions are quite tight. People were panicked and buying like crazy, and now we have a little more product. So now let's look at the solds. We're month to month. up 3.13% from last month. And year over year, though, we're down 13.61% from February of last year. But our prices are still going strong. And now we'll look at the average days on market. Sitting at 32 days this month, we were 36 days in January. Last year, we were sitting at 26 days. So again, it was a little hotter the market was a little more hot last year at this time. So that 32 days, still not bad, still not super far off from 26 days, but certainly trending down from last month and from December. And now we can look at the price distribution. The majority of these sales, actually 28.62% of them coming in at $500,000 to $600,000. Then we have the $600,000 to $700,000 range, followed by the $400,000 to $500,000 range. And then check this out, that $1 to $1.5 million range, followed by that $900,000 to $1 million range, followed by that $800,000 to $900,000 range, and then that $700,000 to $800,000 range. So remember when I said Calgary has some pretty nice duplexes or semi-detached homes? Well, there's proof in the pudding right there. And now we'll take a look at the City of Calgary row housing. So we'll look at this listing absorption rate immediately sitting at 48.55%. Now, that's because we had 655 listings for sale with 318 of them, or 48.55% of them selling. And you can see that that's just into balanced territory, just south of the precipice of that sellers and balanced market. Now, again, this will change from neighborhood to neighborhood and price point to price point, but that's where we're at right now. The benchmark price sitting at $446,800. Now, this is up 0.43% from last month. Year over year, it's up 2.78%. And again, you can see the black with the prices increasing here on this chart, and then the blue is showing a decrease in the pricing. And so some seasonal softening again as we got through summer and we started to get into the fall, and now we're bumping back up. So some good signs in that market. Nice to see that that's rebounding a little bit. And we'll look at the 10-year price trend chart. 2016 prices sitting around $306,000, and here we are at $445,000 roughly. And so again, this 2025 stat is averaging January and February, so we're not through the entire month, but you can see in 2024 prices, the benchmark price overall was sitting at $452,425. So from 2016 to now, it would have been a gain of 45.33% in the market. And now we'll look at the active and sold listings. There were 655 actives with 318 sold properties. Looking at the actives, we're up in the amount of actives month to month by 11.21% from last month. So that's a fair jump. And year over year, guys, check this out, up 113.36% from February of last year. Now that's very telling. I mean, that blows your socks off, right? And again, that just speaks to the difference in the market that we're in right now. Now, the amount of sold sitting at 318, that's up 28.74% from last month. So that's a big spike month to month. But year over year, we're down 9.66%. So even though our inventory is up, 113% from last year, our amount of sales were only down, under 10% from last year. So again, a different market last year, but overall, I think that's still pretty healthy. And honestly, when we see product sitting in that balanced territory, as a realtor, I feel that my buyer and seller clients make better decisions when the market is in that balanced territory, as opposed to being in that, seller's market or buyer's market where people make rash decisions and maybe, maybe they're not willing to have the same protections put in place. So, and that's because the market demands it sometimes. So, as a realtor, I don't mind seeing balanced territory. It's good to see the market in that territory. Now, average days on market, moving along here, sitting at 31 days, and that's a big drop from the 39 days from last month. However, it's up a fair bit from the 20 days from last year. Again, just demonstrating the different kind of a market that it is now, and that the fact that we have a lot more supply. And now we will look at where the price distribution sits. So we've got 41%, 41.59% of those sales taking place in that $400,000 to $500,000 range, followed by that $500,000 to $600,000 range, just beating out that $300,000 to $400,000 range and then so on and so forth. And last but not least, looking at the apartment condominium sector of the market, we'll take a look at this listing absorption rate. Now you're going to notice this is quite a change from the other sectors where we're just into balanced territory. Here we are sitting at 32.26%, and that's because we had 1,466 listings with 473 of them, or 32.26% of those listings being sold. And you'll see that this is just above the buyer's market. So we're just into balanced territory. And again, this is going to change from community to community and price point to price point. But we are seeing that we are, overall in this balanced territory just barely. So there's opportunity in the condominium apartment sector. I remember taking clients out a couple of years ago, well, even last year, and it was a battle trying to find a condo because you were competing, and it was tough. A lot of clients were losing out on competing offers, and it was very challenging for buyers at that time. Well, you can see that how the tables have changed, and that's because this is the most affordable sector of the market, and there's a lot more people putting their properties on the market here in this sector of the market. So the benchmark price sitting at $334,200, and that's up 0.84% from last month. So even though we are in balanced territory and we have more product, we are seeing a rebound in pricing. We're going, and year to date, we're up 3.95%. Let's just call it 4% from February of last year. So last year, we were sitting at $321,500, and here we are now at $334,200. Last month, it was $331,400. And you can see this black showing the prices going up all the way through to August, and then that seasonal softening starting in the fall and going into winter from September to January. And now here we are with a little bit of a rebound. So again, maybe our spring market is starting earlier because we are a wintering city. That's just the way it works here. We see a lot of people putting their homes on the market in the spring, and buyers kind of coming out of hibernation, if you will, and getting into the marketplace. So but we're seeing some health here in the market. So prices increasing, even though we're sitting in this balanced territory just above that buyer's market. And now we'll look at the benchmark price trend chart. In 2016, sitting at 274,575, and now sitting at 2025, again, averaging out January, February, we're 332,800. Again, that's average of January, February. But you can see in 2024, the average overall was $336,183. So from 2016 to now, that's an increase of 21.21%. Well, guys, still not too shabby at all. So that's where we're sitting at in the market. There is opportunity still. And the pundits are still saying that because we have a shortage of housing, that the market is still going to thrum along. So we are still anticipating that there's going to be prices are still going to be remaining strong. We're not going to see any big decreases, apparently, even in the face of tariffs. So it's an exciting journey that we're all on as Canadians. We'll wait and see what happens and see where the market goes that way. And before I do that, let's finish up here looking at the actives and sold listings. Sitting at 1,446 actives with 473 sold. So the actives is up 13.2% from last month. So a lot more supply year over year, up nearly 90% from February of last year. So again, just a different market from last year to this year. Month to month, the solds are up 27.84% from last month. Year to year, though, the sales are down 25.86%, even though supply is up roughly 90%. So, again, different market that we were in last year. Let's look at days on market. 42 days as of February, 51 as of January. So that's quite a big improvement, but very different from the 26 days on market last year. Again, demonstrating that difference in the market. The majority of these sales taking place in that $300,000 to $400,000 range, with roughly 40% of the sales in that range, and then that $200,000 to $300,000 range, followed by that $400,000 to $500,000 range, and so on and so forth.
As I said earlier, if you are considering a move to the city of Calgary or one of the bedroom communities, or you're considering selling your home, please feel free to reach out to me. Send me a text, email, or a phone call. I will absolutely get back to you so you can live your life in Calgary, Alberta.